Heaven. I feel like I'm at Sinai. Hi, God. Everybody, please take a book from here. Okay. So here we go. Lesson 4 of This Can Happen. And I must tell you, as we go through it, every week it gets better and better. It's just amazing. Baruch Hashem. Those who are not here, I hope they won't miss out. With spirit on the way, hello. Can't cover the bank with spirit. We do that too, don't get me wrong, but good evening, those who are present here, like Brad, also known as Betel Jacobson, I should say Betel, aka Brad, Moshe and Deanna Goldberg, Ira. Off we go, lesson 4.
Center, Tati, your face is not centered. Okay. Yeah, now you're better.
I do want to thank my daughter and son-in-law for choosing to take an 11 o'clock flight today so they can do this and then off to the airport. Thank you. So, lesson 4. Lesson 4, basically, we look at everything in life as a trip, a journey. There's a purpose and a goal, and it's all part of it. From the moment of creation, as we learned last week, there's a purpose. Today, we're going to focus on 4 major experiences that the world has experienced, has affected us, and how it's been beneficial, if you can say, to advance and to move ahead towards redemption. So let's journey this together. But before that, let's start with a question here on page 138. How would we characterize the journey of Jewish history? Any thoughts? Leave Jackie Mason out for a moment. First thought comes to mind, a roller coaster. Ups and downs. So it goes. Moments of triumph. Moments of ecstasy. Moments of tragedy and moments of agony. But we learned last week that the world was created with a purpose. And every generation, we are moving closer to that purpose and that goal, reaching that goal. Millions, probably billions of mitzvahs. We have made this world more fit for God, making him comfortable. Every mitzvah is another brick on the edifice that we're building for the Almighty God. So every mitzvah advances us to redemption. But the question is that really the case? Has the world been steadily spiritually progressing? We can say on many levels, yes, and on many levels, not necessarily. So today we're going to learn how it's not just that we're taking a roller coaster of ups and downs. We're not taking 1 step forward, 2 steps backward, or even 2 steps forward and 1 step backward. But we're going to learn today that every step, even that which we perceive as backward, is a step closer to materializing this dream and plan. So that's the key to our class today. That there's no ups and downs. We're always moving forward. Take, for example, a key. Every key has its ups and downs here. Remember, before we had the remote keys, we had this. May I remember? Our grandchildren will look at this and say, hey, what is this? You don't have it on your phone? You still carry a ring of keys with you? Is there an app? Anyway, no. And this key, no different than the app. The app also has the 1 and the 5. 1 is a lower number, a high number, a code. Doesn't mean that it's ups and downs. No. It just means that this is how we get in and unlock the door. We're unlocking redemption. So we're unlocking, we're taking a key, whether it's a multi-lock, Rav Briach, God bless Israel, or it's any other key. We have our ups and downs of David, good evening. And together, it's not ups and downs. It's all part of the process. We're aiming for a goal and a purpose. And that is Geula, that's redemption. Now, to be honest, see this Hasidic thought gives us such a unique perspective that I don't think you see anywhere else. Really. Many others will tell us about the ups and the downs, the punishments, rewards. Now, obviously, punishment and reward, we learned earlier, is one of the 13 principles of faith. But in Hasidic terminology, even while we think there's a punishment, we're looking at it as the down and the key. It's all part of the key that will unlock redemption. Obviously, we're looking for the ups, what's up in our eyes, but at the same time, it's all part of that key, and that's the history that we have. The ups and downs, the roller coaster, we're always going up and further up and yet further up. It's all in that process in order to reach that goal. And today we're going to change somewhat perspective of how we look at the world at large and the experiences we experience. So now let's start with our spiritual purpose of history. We know the purpose of creation is expressed in the Medrash that we learned already in the past, page 139, text 1, and that is, when the Holy One, blessed be He, created the universe, He desired to have a home in the lowest realm. And we learned what the lowest realm meant. The lowest means that which feels where godliness is most absent. But let's focus here, and next screen, please, on three general ideas that we have in this expression, and emphasize that three principles, how amazing, really amazing, how every word of the sages is precise. And there's the three ideas. First of all, let's start the lowest. We explained last week the lowest means that it's as distant as it comes. Now, obviously, there's no space up and down in heaven, but rather we're talking about spiritual levels. There's lower, more coarse, more spiritually sensitive, and so on. Then you have a home. What is a home? It's not just a place where I eat my lunch, not just a place. You know, many sadly have this perception or misconception that I have to be a kosher Jew at home, but outside of the house, I can be different. What does that mean? That means that outside of the house, I'm not myself. At home is one thing. At home, I can't bring the McDonald's or Burger King into the house. But outside, I remember it was 1998, 99. My brother was learning in Israel. He came to visit me as I was visiting Israel with one of our friends in the Five Towns. And he walked with a big bag of a Kentucky Fried Chicken. I did not know that it was kosher in Jerusalem. My heart dropped. And my brother's playing with me, telling me, listen, you leave home, it's just different, you know, Kentucky Fried Chicken. And he really pulled my leg big time. And then he showed me that it had a very good standard of kashrut. I don't know how it is today, but see, well, it makes sense, just the name itself. So what am I saying? At home is different. At home means I'm comfortable there. At home does not mean where I'm in a supermarket where I'm acting. At home is where I live. At home is where I express myself best. And that's what we find in text 2, emphasized for me, Hasidic discourse from the Rebbe regarding home. Take, for example, the second paragraph towards the end. At home, we are openly in the fullest. Good evening, Daniela. The same as when we're talking about a home for God towards the end. God desires a home in the lowest realm. A home means, lesson 4, that he's open, meaning comfortable there. Continuing. What does it mean a king's home? We're in lesson 4, page 141. A king's home. A king is never allowed to be seen undressed. Out of respect. But when he's home, there's certain areas that he's allowed to be undressed because he's himself. He's allowed to be himself. Now, similarly, what does it mean when God is undressed, removes his clothing? It means there's nothing concealing godliness. That's what it means when God is comfortable in this home, is when you see revealed godliness, when we see it in the open like home. And that's really our purpose. So we have now 2 of the 3 we covered. We need it in the lowest realms, and we need a home. A home means a person is free, no limitations. We used to have a mentor in yeshiva who told us in Hebrew, a dormitory is called a pnimiyah. Now, pnimiyah literally means an internalization of some sort. It doesn't even mean a home. Translate. Pnimiyah means pnimi. It means someone who's inside. You can translate it as indoors. And he would say in the dorm, is where you see where the person really is. In yeshiva, it may be studious, but they have a movie under the bed, or maybe a book that may not be appropriate for yeshiva students. And in the old days, in yeshiva, the teachers would give us a sudden visit. We would get the audit. I remember once we had one mentor who was so removed from everything physical. If you remember, the old stereos had detachable speakers. So I had a stereo with detachable speakers in my room, and he went in screaming, going, "Are you for Jewish music, whatever?" And he went in screaming. He says, "You have 3 radios in one room. Look, 1, 2, 3. What's going on?" He didn't. Now, a pnimiyah dorm means a home where the boy, the student, the boy, the girl is there, and that's where you see that true essence. That's where they hide their secret that they're not allowed to smoke in yeshiva. They're doing it in the dorm, whatever it is. And nowadays, that was the sin. If it God forbid caught smoking, not anything, just smoking in general, it was not allowed. But either way, that's where the home is. So God is looking similarly to have that home here in this world. And finally, we see in text 3 that what does it mean? Edira b'tachtonim. Tachtonim means the lowest realm becomes a home for God. We're inviting God into here. So in other words, when God wants us to make that home. So first of all, it has to be a home. It has to be in the lowest realms, as low as you can get, so to say. And we'll soon see what that means as we go along in the class. And it has to come from us. So now, page 143, we have it like this. A, God wants to be present in the lowest realms. B, he wants to be fully at home. He wants to be, it's his house. And C, to have a home in the lowest realms created by the inhabitants of the lowest realm. No magic. We got to do it ourselves. We want to make it happen, make it happen. No one else is going to make it happen. Just in sum it up, we used to have a mentor used to tell us, we say in the L'chadodi, we ask of the Almighty, shake me off from dust and let me rise. So he would always quote to us the Zohar. I never saw the Zohar, but he would quote it to us. Like a rooster. You can clean it from today to tomorrow. Nothing happens. Let it flap its own wings. But we got to flap those wings. We can be guided on how to flap the wings, but we have to do it ourselves. So in simple words, it means that God has a desire that people in this world should make a difference and make this world a vessel for the Almighty. And all 3 components, as we mentioned earlier on page 143, are necessary. If there's a world of tzaddikim and angels in the upper realms, we haven't accomplished it. It may be holy, but we have not accomplished it. If it is a world only in the lower realms, but it's coming with blessings and miracles, obviously blessings, but it's not coming with our own work, again, we have not done it. If there was we'll soon see miracles that transform the world, we have not done it. It has to be us making the home for God by us. So now, with this understanding, and how God has a purpose from creation, and we're always moving ahead, we now need to apply the information to the events in history. So that's what we're going to try and learn today. Obviously, we can't speak about every event in history. So open up the Tanakh. And by the way, you open up the books, just a sign of the prophets and scriptures. What we see going on in Israel today, it's history repeating itself again and again. And the Rebbe of blessed memory would point it out and say who you're making peace with. Whatever, we can go on and on. It's not a matter of politics. It's a matter of fact. It's a matter of life. It's a matter of code of Jewish law, what Israel consists of and so on. So now let's take the 4 narratives that we're going to talk about today. First of all, it's act number 1, okay, where we have in the timeline, creation, Adam and Eve in paradise in the Garden of Eden. And then you have it on page 144. There's the explosion of the Garden of Eden. Continuing, Abraham is born, act 2. And ultimately, he works his way up. We'll soon see how that happened. And then there's the descent to Egypt. Then we continue. The Exodus, giving of the Torah, all is good. Sin of the golden calf. Building the tabernacle, building the holy temples, all is good. Now it's now close to 2,000 years later, we're still in exile. So we have our 4 general scenarios of the ups and downs. And we're going to see what it means to us in achieving the purpose and how God wanted this world to be his home. And that is the purpose of creation from the moment of creation. So let's start creation. Creation is a beautiful life of bliss. Text 4, page 147. God planted a garden on the eastern side of Eden, and he placed there the man whom he had formed. God caused to sprout from the ground every tree that was pleasant to see and good to eat. All is great. It's like paradise. You're going to, I don't know, Cancun, Mexico. I don't know what do we translate there, but actually it's not godly. But whatever, however one would consider a world that's just perfect and beautiful. Take it from the Medrash. The Medrash says, what is this garden? And actually, this is just want to mention, because to us as Chabad, this is fundamental. The Rebbe's first Hasidic discourse that he opened up in 1951, he opened with this verse from Song of Songs, which basically set the tone of our mission statement, if you can say, in today's day and age. And the Medrash says, King Solomon describes a love relationship of God and the Jewish people. And he says, I have come to my garden. The verse does not speak of a garden, gan in Hebrew, but rather my garden, gani, for the sake of implying genuni, my marital home, the location that originally served as primary residence. For was not God's primary presence originally located within the world realm? That's where he was. Where was he? He was in Gan Eden. That's where he found himself, in the Garden of Eden. So, beginning of creation, life was great. It was a place of immense physical and spiritual beauty. So if you wanted a place in this world, he got into their creation. There was physical beauty. There was spiritual beauty. That's the ultimate, combination, connection. You have God. You have the humans, Adam and then Eve, Adam and Chava. All is good. So where would we go wrong here? So what is the problem with this idea of Dira B'Tachtonim, a place for God in this world? Well, as we learned earlier, that's not the purpose, because it may be beautiful, but insofar as it is God's intention, the purpose is missing. If I send you to go and get me a sandwich, and you get me a delicious salad, the salad may be great, but that's not what I asked for. I asked for the sandwich. In a marriage, if a spouse sends you, we won't say husband or wife because we don't want to touch on that, to get you a white couch, and you got a beautiful black couch. Let's say the husband really cares, right? Right. Okay. Let's say, so you got a beautiful couch, right? But that's not what I asked for. God did not ask for Gan Eden. He didn't ask for this because he wanted that we, as individuals, not that it should be created from above, this miraculous thing. There's a beautiful song that many sing Motzei Shabbos about Elijah the prophet, how he built a mansion overnight. And there was a poor man, a beautiful song. It's not found in the Chabad Siddur, but I also open other Siddurim. Really a fascinating song there. But that's not why we're here. We're here that we should make the difference. I used to have a friend, grew up in a very affluent home, but his father did not. His father grew up in a very simple home. So his mother would say, my son, when his shoes tear, shoemaker, God forbid, goes to the garbage and buys him a pair of shoes. My husband grew up in a simple home, a multimillionaire, really a wonderful man. He goes to the shoemaker and he gets them repaired. It's a very different feeling. When you grew up in it and spoiled by it versus working for everything. So here we go. We want to connect the physical and the spiritual. We want it to come from us. When the world was created, there was a tremendous, you can say, shine and energy from above, but it didn't necessarily permeate our existence. So therefore, the Garden of Eden is not the purpose. We didn't get that purpose of a home being built by us for the Almighty. Yes, Gan Eden was a model home. The model home is what the world should look like and what the world will, God willing, look like. That's how the world was created. But we have to make it happen. But in order for us to make it happen, there had to be a breakaway from the Garden of Eden. So we can make it happen, make it our own. So therefore, Adam and Eve, in a sense, destroyed that garden. They defied the Almighty's will. so that we can make that place happen. As we find in text 6a, there was the expulsion. God expels Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden. So again, going back to the Rebbe's teachings, text 6b, page 151, the Rebbe explains why was there this explosion? What happened here? Because, as you can see in the middle of the first paragraph, that there are two ideas that must happen. We have to fashion God's home, A, within the realm that is absolute lowest, and B, using the natural materiality of the lowest realm itself. By the way, the Rebbe taught us how to use the lowest realm itself, that which people think is the lowest, and in many worlds they still don't use it. I remember I was a number of years ago, I was in upstate, and a guy asked me about for the number of a Chabad rabbi in Manchester, because he goes there for the grain for the matzah for Pesach. So now it's the summer, he needed the number. So I told him he can. I didn't realize. I said you can just do a search. I don't even know the guy, but I'll do a search. You don't have. He looked at me, says, no, I only have a flip phone he had. So I did the search, and he said, you have such a phone? No. I said, that's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is I have a phone so that I can find the shliach in Manchester so I can help you get your wheat and your grain that you need for your matzah. There's two perspectives. And he was laughing. He got the message. Obviously, not, God forbid, saying, I think that's what's the acceptable in their circles. And it's beautiful. You know, ignorance is bliss on the one hand. On the other hand, in the world that we live in, so to say, in the Chabad world we live in, you need that. You want to direct someone somewhere. You want to find something. You want to find, today I was looking for a Hasidic melody. I did a Google search and I found it. So it's all there. So we understand now that there was this sin, but it was necessary. Why? Torah tells us to work of the earth. So which means that work that lowest plane of reality, and at the same time fashioning something that is on the highest level, a divine home for the Almighty God. So the sin of the tree of knowledge represents that divine defiance that we see throughout the ages. And that brought a spiritual impurity to the world. But that was necessary. It was not even necessary evil, we can say. It was necessary to fulfill the purpose of creation. Yes, it's a radical idea. Because what we're saying is basically, in order to get to somewhere, you got to sin somewhere along the way. So let's see how this goes. The sin of the tree of knowledge takes Adam and Eve and says, out of the paradise world, out of the spiritual world. Now it's time to take that light that you had here and bring it into a world that's concealed of godliness and make that a reality in the world that's concealed of godliness. So yes, for that we need to work, we need to toil, we need to labor, we need to engage in a divine pursuit of our own initiative. It can't be inspired by divine light, it's inspired by divine energy. But when you and I wake up in the morning, not always are we excited to run to shul, to do a mitzvah, so on. It has to come from within. For that matter, to help a fellow person. I remember we had once a friend, once came very late to yeshiva, and he had a book of excuses. So the mashgiach asked him, what's your excuse today? Guy taking attendance. He said, I was trying to help the old lady cross the street. He said, so what took 2 hours? He said, she never came. So that was if we want excuses, we can, we wrote the book of excuses, but that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for an excuse for an in, not for an out. Yes, at times it's challenging. So therefore, God created a perfect world. But at the same time, he created it with a purpose, with a possibility for us to complete that aspect of creation that's needed to make a home for this world. So now, let's take page 152 and analyze this, the God's home chart. Next screen, please. So you have the Garden of Eden. Was it a lowly realm? No. God was there. Was it God's essence? No. Built by us? No. So we have 3 no's. That's definitely not the purpose. Again, that is the model of what the world will look like and should look like. But it's not for now. Now let's continue further into history. After the sin of the tree of knowledge, the world was now ready and prepared to make a home for God in this world, which is somewhat distant from godliness. And things went as far as throughout a few generations, they were worshiping idols. And God didn't exist in their eyes. There was no paradise. There was no home for God. There was nothing. Comes Abraham, Avraham Avinu, and he's here to discover a creator by his own efforts to educate the world. He enters into a world that's very far removed. Maimonides describes how he was really trying to figure out as a child. There's actually a whole discussion how old Abraham was when he discovered God, whether he was 3, whether he was 40, or many ages in between. But either way, he is himself working it. His heart is busy analyzing everything, and he gained a clear understanding. But he did it himself. Great. That's perfect. If we've seen this, my mind is again. I would highly recommend that after the class, as always, learn all of the sources again, review them, and all of the additional learnings. There really is a lot of great stuff here. And ultimately, Abraham realized, as Maimonides tells us here in the source, there's one God that created everything, and that there's no other God amongst that exists. There's only one God. So he goes to spread the word. The king desires to execute him. He overcomes that. Now he ends up in the land of Canaan, where Abraham proclaimed Canaan is what we call Israel today. The Canaanites lived there then, and not to in any way confuse it with anything else. As Rashi tells us, Torah tells us that from the moment Israel was created, it was there for us. The oldest document in history describes in great length how the land is our land. So let's not get carried away with it. It's not a political thing. It is a sense of ownership and a sense of halachic safety. So now, for that matter, let us dedicate our learning today to the memory of those who never lost their lives during this battle, those who are fighting for their lives and are in need of a refuah, of a cure. May God help that they have a full, immediate, miraculous recovery. So Abraham proclaims that there is an eternal God. Abraham removes the layers that are concealing godliness, and he's revealing the truth. Abraham is recognizing that there's something called a perspective of God in the world. There's a creator, God who made everything exist. There's a God, he announces and proclaims there is a place that's called the world that really is meant to be a garden of the Almighty, in essence. Abraham lives in a dark world, and as an individual, he takes it on to transform this world and make it a place where God can live. And he worked hard. And on many levels, he succeeded. And ultimately, slowly but surely, people start following. And the world becomes more of a home for the Almighty. And then his son Yitzchak, Isaac, and then his son Jacob continue this idea. Now, page 157, that Abraham's efforts and the efforts of the subsequent patriarchs to bring divine awareness to the world constitute the fulfillment of God's intention of having a home in the lowest realm. Why or why not? So, go ahead here. It goes as follows. The world, they made an effort. They made headway. They did some progress. But at the same time, Abraham recognized a world of nature, defining God to a limited natural world. But God wanted to recognize him not only as a creator of a world, but that I and God can have a relationship. Take, for example, go back a screen, please, parents and children. When a child is young, the parents are there to change a child's diapers, to give them a baby bottle, to buy them a toy. But ultimately, as children mature and get older, they recognize there's something beyond just the parent taking care of me, cleaning my clothing, feeding me, taking care of my tuition. Usually it tends to happen once children get married on some level, that they actually start developing a relationship with their parents. That's what happens, because it's just how it is. I mean, it could be they gain some sense of maturity, independence, whatever it is. And now there's a very different parent-child relationship. It's a relationship that's not, what can I get out of this? Are they here to take care of me? But there's actually an ongoing relationship. So too, which means the essence of the child is connecting to the essence of the parent. Not only what can I wouldn't say what can I take, but rather how much can the parent take care of me? That's not what it's about. For that matter, many children take care of their parents. That's especially as they move on in life and they're older in life. That's the nature. That's how it works. It goes on reverse. But that's what you call a relationship. Same it is with our relationship with God. We can try and comprehend godliness, that it's there only God gives me life and God gives me health and God give me, God give me. Or we can reach the essence of God, have a relationship. When one has the God give me health and God give me, it's somewhat of a childish relationship. It's I'm there because God takes care of me. But God is not just limited to creation. There's something more than that. There's a great story of a chassid of Shmuel Munkus who was traveling to his Rebbe, to the Alter Rebbe, and he gets stuck the night of Shlichus, the first night, Saturday night in the shtetl, and he decides to sleep, or at least act like he's sleeping. And midnight, the farmer comes knocking on his door, wakes him up, and says, Shmuel, you're a rabbi, you should know by now. We go to Shlichus, we're doing sleeping. He says, leave me alone, let me sleep. He says, it's the middle of the night, why wake me up? Give me more Slichus. So Shmuel asks, he says, what Slichus? He says, usually what it literally means, we're asking the Almighty for atonement. The Sephardic Jew started a month before, most others started a week before or so, and at least 4 days before, started Saturday night. So the farmer tells him, simple, you get up at midnight and you ask of the Almighty that we should have what to eat and what to drink and what to feed our children, and that the cow should give milk. And if Shmuel looks at him and says, what, are we babies? We get up in the middle of the night to ask for food? What's Shmuel telling him? There's something deeper in our relationship than just give me food, take care of me, look after me. It's not only that. Yes, obviously, we want that, and we ask of the Almighty all of that, but there's a relationship here. There's something that's not only about give me, it's a give and take. It's an ongoing relationship. We know in any relationship, whether it's siblings or spouses, if it's a give and take, we're in trouble. It has to be an unconditional relationship where there's the essence that connects to the essence, and that's what it's about. So, after so much effort is invested by Abraham, Jacob ends up in Egypt. And he ends up in Egypt because we still need something deeper than that. We have to now go to a time of, you would say, pain, but there's a purpose. And that is, we're looking at the purpose of creation, to make a home for the Almighty next screen in this world. Now, in order for something to change, at times they have to lose their existence in order to grow. Take, for example, the caterpillar wants to become a butterfly. In order for that to happen, the caterpillar disappears and becomes a butterfly. A seed needs to become a tree. So now you take the seed, put it in the ground. If the seed wants to maintain its identity, nothing will happen. But when it rots in the ground and it becomes part of the earth, then there's the possibility for a seed to produce a tree. Without that, there is nothing changes. So same is at times we have to go through that process of what we call, in Hasidic Kabbalistic terminology, there's the yesh, there's the existence, there's the other existence, and in between there's the ayin, there's being non-existent. In other words, when a person comes in, let's say, to learn a topic, if they come with a preconceived notion that I must walk out with this conclusion, they will never learn a thing. But if they come with the notion, I'm here to learn, I don't know enough about it, then they may actually gain something. Why? Because there's the ayin be'emtza. There has to be that idea, recognizing that right now I'm non-existent. And similarly, that's what happened when Jacob and his children descend to Egypt. The Maimonides describes this. You see in page 161, text 9. They descend. There's the tribe of Levites. They don't get stuck with any slavery on any level. They don't worship idols, etc. But there was a moment, as he mentioned, that we came very close to being awfully uprooted. And within the realm of nature, we should have all been assimilated in Egypt. I want to tell you, by the way, when I came to Russia after 70 years of communism, I saw a Jew who still spoke Yiddish and learned Torah. And for that matter, one of them had all of his 3 children married Jewish. I said, this is nothing short of a miracle. It was a miracle. So now, if we were in the place of the Jews in Egypt, what would we think? How would we place our mind? What would be my feeling today? So next screen, please. So we recognize, you go and you say, continue, please. that the slavery gets to your head. It's very hard. After all, how much can I believe in God? I'm enslaved. The Egyptians are banging me over the head. Where's the faith? So it's true. If God is only limited to creation, and I see in the realm and limits of creation, it's not happening, then it's very true. Then I say, I'm done. Then the faith is gone. So when Moses comes and says, I'm here to redeem you, they told him, leave us alone. They literally said, leave me alone. They said that to Moses. Moshe Rabbeinu. Why? Because nothing, if this is it, and we're enslaved for 210 years, how are you going to save us? The Egyptians rule. Maybe there's a God somewhere, but right now the Egyptians are ruling, and therefore, how can I believe? So when it's hard to believe on a God of nature, we have to now reach something greater, and that is the supernatural. So as we see in our next chart, you have the Garden of Eden, and then you have Abraham. Abraham was in the lowly realm, yes, a world that worshipped idols. Was God's essence revealed there? No. It was all a physical world. Was it built by us? Sure, he worked hard. But God's essence is still not there. It's all limited to a physical creation. So in Egypt, the rules of nature, the laws of nature, influenced somewhat of a weakness and disenchantment when it came to ideas of redemption. Because who can believe in a God that's supernatural? On a side note, the Rebbe in the early years once mentioned that the Baal Shem, the founder of Hasidism, was known for the supernatural, miraculous miracles that he performed as a tzaddik. But in Chabad, there was no emphasis on miracles. And the Rebbe said in today's day and age, it seems that it's time to emphasize that again. And we saw by the Rebbe, the miracles to this day that are still unfolding are just amazing above and beyond anything rational. It could be, I don't know this for a fact, that there's a similar time where you realize, okay, now what? And we need the reminders that there's a supernatural creator, not limited to the realm of creation. So where did they see it when they were in Egypt? Towards the end, God sends 10 plagues, miracles. And we say in the Haggadah, each plague had so many details. It was more than just 10, but it went on and on, these plagues. Then God breaks all rules of nature. Same architect who created the rules of nature can undo the rule of nature. And he broke them all. And from there, whether it's you're taking a staff that becomes a snake, water turns into blood, fire and ice are mingling as a miracle. They commingle. You have darkness that immobilizes. All miracles. And then obviously, splitting of the sea, the water stands like a wall. We say it every morning in the morning service, that the water stood like a firm wall. All miracles upon miracles. Receiving of the Torah, God speaks from heaven. It wasn't just one guy saying, I heard a voice. If one guy says, I heard a voice, he sounded doing this institution, right? We begin to hear voices. But rather, we all heard it. Millions of us together heard it. And we all heard. And not only did we hear, but we saw everything like somewhat was switched. That which is normally seen was heard. That which is normally heard was seen. There was something going on. So you have miracles upon miracles that constantly expressed in this realm the idea of supernatural. And that's really the opening of the Ten Commandments. The opening of the Ten Commandments, page 164, text 10a. I am the Lord your God, who has taken you out from the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage. So in text 10b, the question is asked. God only took us out of the land of Egypt. He created heaven and earth. And especially as explained in great length in Tanya, that miracles mean, I take a detail, for example, the splitting of the sea. Splitting of the sea is a big miracle. But really, it's a miracle within creation. I've taken water that has the law of gravity and I changed a little detail. But how about creation itself? There's no greater miracle than that. Creating something from nothing. So why does it say, I am the Lord your God who's taking you out of Egypt? After all, God has much to say, if you can say much greater than that. But rather, the Exodus demonstrates that after creating heaven and earth, there's a defined set of rules. Nevertheless, the Almighty is able and does alter natural order and conducts the universe in an entirely supernatural manner. So with these experiences, we understand that there's something much deeper. And that is there's the essence of God that helps in making a home for him in this world. So theoretically, we're getting closer here. God reveals himself in this world, is not making a home for God in this world. And the answer is no. We're getting there, but we're not there yet. Why is that? Because God did it. We didn't do it. It's somewhat superimposed upon us. And therefore, when they're superimposed, it's not me who did it. There's a power from above that's infusing it. But God wanted that we should do it. It shouldn't just be a home, A, point number one, for God, B, in the lower realms, but it should come from us. We should make it. So if that's the case, if he does everything, that's not the home. It's like the difference of a child receiving a home from his parents versus paying for the home. You know the difference? That's when they care about it. You ever see the kid will laugh at the parent for closing the lights because they're not getting the bills? They're not investing in it. You're an old man closing your lights. We used to remember follow the director of the yeshiva when he closed the lights. A minute later, we opened them because it was fun, right? And now I'm finding myself doing the same thing, closing the lights. Yeah, we had a lot of fun. We looked forward to yeshiva. It was a different yeshiva, if you know. Anyway, but God wanted us that we should transform this world, that we should have our effort, our initiative, our work in making a world of a difference. And therefore, we find, bless you, that this world, that when God gave the Torah at Sinai, Sinai did not, when that code of Jewish law dictates that I'm not allowed to step on the board of a sukkah wall. Why? Because it's holy. The decoration of a sukkah is holy. We have to deal with it. That's why when we are, for example, as I remember, there's one guy who decorates his sukkah locally with salami going across. Salami don't spoil without a refrigerator, so it makes it easier. You say L'chaim and then you break off a chaser. That's how it works there. These long salamis he has going across, that's the sukkah. So you have to make sure it's designated for the sake of using it. Bricks of a shul, you're not allowed to just discard of it. Why? Because it's something holy. Mount Sinai, the holiest place. God gave us Torah, the ultimate revelation. And sadly, we're fighting for Temple Mount, right? That we built. Mount Sinai, God gave us Torah. Mount Sinai, and it's just another mountain somewhere. We don't even know exactly where it is. We can try and figure it out. But we have, what happened? What happened to the holiness there? So the Rebbe explains in a talk, text 11, that there was a temporary injection of holiness. Yes, there was a tremendous revelation. You have it here on page 166. But at the same time, it was a temporary revelation. It was somewhat, if you can say, a world conforming to godliness, but not living it and breathing it. It's like at times when today's day and age, we have it a lot. Which is we have it a lot. We have it exists where a student is in school and they feel it's not them. They're conforming. They're good kids, so they'll be nice. They'll be respectful to their teacher and to their principal, and they'll even get A pluses on every test and exam because they're just good kids. But when they come home, they're not that student. They don't feel like it's them. They're conforming. It's not them. But God wants a change from within. So therefore, what God does, he says, 40 days later, they're worshiping idols. There was no change from within. It was superimposed from above. We learned earlier, if you want to see a difference, let the seed rot in the ground, be transformed to a tree. But if it's not transformed, it could be hanging around trees and it could be put in the ground, but nothing will happen. because it was not transformed. And a thought that ever relates to a beautiful idea. We look as the sin of the golden calf is a horrible thing. But look how Chassidus looks at it. Yes, we're not saying it's not horrible. But let's find the positive to it too. And that is what's the positive twist? The golden calf, page 12, text 12, page 167. The sin of the golden calf transpired due to a preceding supernal decision that through such an event, the people will achieve the superiority of tshuva, repentance and return. Otherwise, it never happened. God says, I want to give you an opportunity. You can worship a golden calf and don't throw the towel in. Yes, it's not great. You get yourself a little dirty. Maybe you're stuck in the mud to your neck, but you can pull yourself out of the mud. It's just mud that's covering you, but it's not your essence. However, as we look at it, we may have undone this superimposed energy in a revealed fashion, but it's there and we can get it again. So now, page 168, God's home chart 3. Let's look at the Exodus in Sinai. Lowly realm, yes, it was even in the desert. God's essence, yes. Built by us, no. So now, we turn to our, for today, fourth and final spiritual milestone. And that is, after the golden calf, Jews begin to build. First, they build a temporary tabernacle in the desert that travels with them. Guys, all holding on with me so far? How are we doing? If you don't mind, we'll do all questions at 9 o'clock. My daughter has to catch an 11 o'clock flight, so she's doing the screen, the slides on the other end. So, that's what happens when I'm still stuck with a pen and pencil. The world of technology, you know. So after the sin of the golden calf, we start building. We started to build a home where God himself, his essence is revealed. We build it by us. People who want to get closer after they've been distanced as a result of the sin of the golden calf, they feel the distance. And they want to return to God with an even greater strength, excitement, intensity than before. And the divine presence is manifested, as you see in text 13, there. To this day, Temple Mount is a holy place. That's why, according to the vast majority of halachic opinions, we should not be going there for a tour, because it's not a place to tour. For that matter, even Israel at large, theoretically and halachically, is not a place to tour. There's a whole question. That's why the Rebbe would suggest when people went to Israel, they should take on a resolution to enhance Torah and mitzvahs, because when one goes to Israel, there's a question if they're allowed to leave Israel. There are a few conditions. A, for marriage, they have a match, a shidduch. B, for parnasa sustenance, and 3, to enhance their study of Torah. So the Rebbe would suggest to take on an enhancement of study of Torah. Otherwise, it could be questionable if you can go back outside of Israel. That's why many make aliyah, just buy a home there and they're there permanently. I make no commissions on this one. Anyway, so we build a home, and it seems that we have really reached the moment, fulfillment of God's original plan, the purpose of creation, to have a home on earth. We built it by ourselves, etc. So why is it destroyed now? Tell you, only in Hasidus, really, without, I've been looking other places, there's nothing like this. It's just rich. We got close. We got very close. We worked hard on undoing the sin of the golden calf. But after all said and done, who initiated the building of the temple? God himself. God says in the book of Exodus, build for me a sanctuary and I will dwell within them. There were tremendous revelations, godly revelations and miracles there, but that's not the goal. We know the goal is to have godliness, but it should be in this physical world. Where does God's desire, where is it fulfilled? A place of darkness. So now, let's go back to God's home chart 4. The temple. The lowly realm? Yes. God's essence? some level, built by us, not completely. After all, take, for example, the tabernacle, just one example. Big boards are built, panels, anywhere from 45 to 60 feet high. That's somewhat of our plans, actually, architectural plans, now I think about it, of our Chabad Center. Hopefully somewhere between 45 and 60 feet, with God's help. Basically, it's the height of the building next door. That's the height, 60 feet, 59 feet to be exact. Who's going to lift those boards? God tells Moses, just put your hand there. Put your hand there and they'll go up. Who built it? Yes, we built them. Who erected it? God. It's not totally ours. Yes, God wanted it that way at that moment. But is the world, we're a step closer, we're doing our divine service, we're, for example, sorry, my father's a sheikh, so I'm not objective about vegans. But for example, slaughtering the animals, explaining great length Hasidic thought, it's elevating the meat that we eat, whatever else. For example, we just came from a holiday. We have a mitzvah to eat meat. We're elevating that cow to make it part of the joy of Yom Tov. So we're there, but we're not there. So the temple is destroyed and we're exiled. And now comes the ultimate test. Can we make a home for God in the darkest of time, in the darkest, spiritually, of places? A time where, sadly, there's pain, agony, ongoing, almost 2,000 years. And at times, it seems there's only darkness here. Can we invite God here in this place, right here where we are? And it has to be done by us and through us. And the answer is yes, that's the purpose of exile, as we see in text 14, page 172. Right? Toward the second half of the paragraph, to a far greater extent than during the temple eras, that our power of self-sacrifice shines. This is because it is specifically the spiritual darkness and divine concealment predominant during exile that mobilizes our potential for self-sacrifice. So close to 2,000 years we're here exiled, and we're in somewhat of a painful situation, materially, spiritually. Even those who haven't good, there's always the bump, the hurdle, and so on. As we're saying, it's part of the process, but nevertheless, it's dark that we're looking to transform darkness to light. We're lighting a menorah. Public menorah is great. We're taking a dark street, a dark wherever it is, and we're transforming it. It's not necessarily because I feel godliness, but rather it comes from someone that says, I have a relationship, and no matter what, I'm going to make it happen. That's the ultimate. That's the home that comes from within and reaches the essence. It's a dark place, a dark time. It looks dark. We feel down at times. Nevertheless, and it's a long, dark, bitter exile. And we're making a home for God here. Yes, there are two times in life. There are moments of persecution. We spoke, for example, 70 years of communism. Where we make a home for God, we're saying no matter what, we're going to fight it. We'll be in the underground, the yeshiva. We'll be circumcised, a bris, no matter what. Jewish marriage, no matter what, and so on. And then there's times of freedom where we can choose as we wish. Now, you would think that during the dark times, that's the ultimate. But during times of freedom, not necessarily. Well, look at today's world. The vast majority of us live a free life where we can act as we wish, freedom of religion, etc. Nevertheless, it is specifically at this time that we accomplish the purpose of creation, not during the time of challenges and tests. Why? Because when everything is good, and I have no need to say, okay, it's so bad, I have to undo the damage, or I'm fighting something external, but rather it's me, myself, and I'm doing it because I want to do it. That's why I'm doing it. That's the ultimate. That's the ultimate in a relationship. It's not no pain, no gain. It's I have this relationship, and I want to have this relationship, and I choose to have this relationship. I can go somewhere else. I could not put on tefillin today, and I do. I cannot give tzedakah today, and I do, because I want to do it. It's not a gain for me. It's because I want to do it. That is the ultimate in making a home for God in this world. That's what we find actually in the discourse that the Rebbe handed to all of us who were there in 1992, and it was the final discourse that we got from the Rebbe, that he explains here that there's the crushed olive, and there are those who are crushed internally. And he says, you have many different experiences. But nevertheless, when we're broken in exile, yet at times we feel the freedom and we're utilizing the freedom, that is the ultimate of making a home for God in this world. So now we have the three components here. We have the lowest level, the lowest, darkest time. We have God, and we have us who made it. That's where we are today. So now we have a whole different perspective. It's not a roller coaster of life. It's not ups and downs. It's like we mentioned earlier, it's the key. The key has these many grooves go up and down. But this is how I unlock redemption and bring it about, make it happen. What does this mean to me on a personal level? Yes, it's never easy to change. It's always painful to change. In life, it's that way. We have ups and downs, and we do for the cause. But what does it mean? Let's not mistake and think that there's not things that happen in life are not there to advance us and our purpose. Everything in life is here to advance us and the purpose of creation. God desires for us to have a relationship, and we should choose him not as a result of something, but rather because we want him. And that's why, for no other reason, it's not a honeymoon where we're loving it in paradise in the Garden of Eden like Adam and Eve. No, not at all. For that matter, there are many reasons that tell me not to. But I have this essential relationship, which means that I want to choose God just because, for no other reason. That is the essence. Now, with that relationship, we can tip the scale, and that means will bring about the coming of Mashiach. And that is in essence what it's about. So today we learned about what has taken place and how it's all advancing towards and part of the plan and process. And Hasidic thought gives a tremendous light onto this. Next week, we're going to learn more about something that is so controversial. That's why I love it so much. And that is the personality of Mashiach. Who do we refer to as Mashiach? What is this about? And many misconceptions. And we're going to learn from a Torah perspective. And now for the key points of the class. Goldie, still there?
Lesson 4. We're getting there. 1. God desires a home in the lowest realm. This has 3 specifications. It must be the lowest realm, receptive to God's essence, and fashioned by its mortal inhabitants. All 3 conditions must be met fully and simultaneously. 2. The spiritual peaks and pits of our history were all steps forward toward this goal. 3. Initially, the world was physically and spiritually beautiful and was inhabited by God. The drawback? It met none of the specifications. It was too spiritual, unprimed for God's essence, and lacking the initiative to embrace God. The sin of the tree of knowledge was necessary to ensure that our physical realm was truly the lowest. 4. Abraham discovered God on his own and shared God with the world, creating a quasi-home for God. The drawback? Abraham educated the world about its creator, but God's essence beyond creation was not yet revealed. 5. The Exodus and giving of the Torah introduced God's essence, transcendent of creation. The drawback? It was imposed by divine acts. It was not the result of internal transformation. 6. The sin of the golden calf removed the superimposed divine awareness. The Jews then erected the tabernacle and, later, the Jerusalem temples, where God's essence was obvious and revealed in man-made homes. The drawback? Human initiative was undermined by strong divine dependence because A. These edifices were God's initiatives, and B. God provided instant spiritual feedback. 7. In exile, we persisted in transforming this world into God's home despite every hardship and persecution. We did so without seeing or sensing God, based exclusively on our mortal initiative. Today's free societies offer the ultimate final challenge. choosing to make a home for God without the influence of overt divinity and without even the external stimulus of persecution. Now it is truly us inviting God. 8. This journey is reflected in our own lives. Even our past regretful choices facilitate a plan and our steps forward in our personal growth.
I guess here we go. Let's go over any questions or concerns, thoughts. Got to disconnect here. Okay. Anybody awake? Are we busy making a home for God here? Well, we got the mission statement. And again, next week, I once had, when I first came out here, there was a local rabbi who was very, very upset. I'm not sure exactly why, that Chabad opened up. And he wanted me to write on a stationery that the Rebbe is not Mashiach. So I decided to have some fun, and I was much younger. I said, I wouldn't even write on a stationery, you're not Mashiach. For all I know, maybe you. He got so angry, but what's he going to say? And I was having a lot of fun with him. Anyway, that's what it is. But it's part of the previous Rebbe once said that in general, we're going to have 3 periods. First, we're going to have opposition in Chabad. Then the opposers will jump on the bandwagon. And then, is where we are today, they'll take the credit as if they initiated it. So it is with every one of the Rebbe's campaigns. Opposition beyond, and I remember the opposition. I remember the opposers too. Many of them are taking credits as initiating today. Some of them are seeing the truth up in heaven. And same as with the Mashiach thing. When I watched many of the organizations, especially during the 9 days, 3 weeks, with their Mashiach campaigns, literally the same slogans that they opposed when the Rebbe spoke about it, that's what they're using for their PR, which is a beautiful thing. We just learned earlier, that's the beauty of tshuva. But anyway, so next week, in Mitzvah Hashem, we'll continue with that. We'll see the sources in Torah. Let's be objective. I don't know if I can be objective, but let's be objective. Good night to all. Pleasure.